Hey guys, it's Jordan.
Hey, it's Danielle.
And welcome back to our panel discussion where today we're going to be talking about Native Son by Richard Wright.
And Wright's masterful execution of three literary elements throughout the novel.
Okay, so what element do you think Wright masterfully used the most in book one?
I saw characterization done very well in book one.
Really? I thought he used symbolism really well, especially when he introduced May Dalton.
I could definitely see that.
Because Bigger was obviously very antagonistic towards her because he thought she had ill intentions towards him.
Mm-hmm.
But because the story is told through a third point of view, we get actual descriptions of her so we can infer for ourselves. And when they were in the car, when Bigger first started driving her, it said she looked like a doll in a show window, black eyes, white face, red lips on page 62. So describing her as a doll is kind of a symbol for her fragility and kind of innocence even. And the way that at the end of the book, we see her be maimed and decapitated in the same way that a child would maim and decapitate and pull apart a doll that they were playing with. Not only is this an incredible use of symbolism, it's also a way that Wright can foreshadow kind of the rest of the book through this symbolism of a doll and just showing what was going to happen by portraying her in this innocence, kind of as she didn't really know a lot because she was oftentimes optimistic in ways that she shouldn't be, especially in a time of racism. But this innocence was kind of stripped away, the same as a dolls are stripped away when they're broken and stuff, when Bigger ends up killing her.
Yeah, I really like that because it also highlights Wright's masterful use of Bigger's personality and his different mental issues, because you know how it's a known fact that sociopaths or psychopaths will break apart dolls or kill
inanimate
animals.
objects and stuff like that.
And you can kind of see how, because he's highlighting the eyes, the arms, the skin, everything about that, it highlights how he's only seeing her from a physical point of view and not as a person.
That's so true. Okay, so you said that Wright masterfully used characterization. So what instance did you see that in?
I saw it done really well on 68 when we're first introduced to Jan.
Okay.
Mary's friend Jan. And I saw Jan as a very good foil for Bigger, actually, because we see Jan as this, optimistic, equality, revolutionized, white man who thinks that, he's gonna make change, versus Bigger's, negative outlook on life and his, especially his negativity towards Black people, in general.
Definitely.
So my quote, it was, "We'll own all that one day, Bigger. After the revolution, it'll be ours. And when the day comes, things will be different. There'll be no Black, there'll be no rich, no poor." And I think Wright uses this very well because he highlights the, no differences between Black, no differences between white, versus Bigger is literally he wishes that he would be a white man. He doesn't want to be Black. He doesn't, see the good things about being a Black man. So I think Wright does this on purpose because he wants us to see how negative Bigger truly is, because if this white man can see the positive things in Black people, why can't, Bigger?
No, I definitely see that, and I really see your point, especially when they go out, when Jan invites him to eat with them, and they're kind of in the restaurant, and Jan and Mary are kind of a good time. They're kind of having to try and include Bigger, and they want to sing this song on page 77, and they're singing and they're oh Bigger join in, and they're having a good time, and he's just so negative because he's still in this mindset that they're out to get him when they're not, and he's just trying to antagonize them even though they're genuinely trying to get good people. So I definitely see the foil there of displaying Bigger as a more scared person, usually, especially with the chapter being called Fear. Showing his fear and where that comes from, and using Jan to do that by showing him in an opposite light.
Yeah, even when they're in the car and they're laughing, I feel that was also
and he's just rolling his eyes.
Oh my gosh, they're out to get me. Were they laughing at me? What are they laughing at?
No, I definitely get that. That's really good. Okay, so what literary element did you see best in Flight?
I saw style done very well in this book.
Okay, I also saw a masterful use of style by Wright in this book, in the way that he used his language to kind of convert Bigger's feelings that we weren't really able to understand at first, because I feel in book one, Bigger had a lot of self-hatred, and the readers couldn't really understand why he felt that everybody was out to get him. But then book two, it becomes so much more apparent, because after he kills Mary and everybody's surrounding him and kind of coming at him, one of the reporters is keep still, it's for you, I want you to give me the dope, when they're asking him to give him like intel on what happened to Mary. But the choice of using the word dope is such a interesting choice and style of language, because dope is usually connected to like criminal behavior and drug abuse and like selling drugs and just like criminalizing black men. And they're kind of using that here instead of using like a common word like intel or like give me the scoop of like what happened. And it's kind of just like dehumanizing Bigger in the same way that he always felt that white people were dehumanizing him, but he was like never able to express it, so the readers kind of like thought he was crazy.
Yeah, I feel like especially now that he fits that like narrative and that stereotype,
right,
now that he's killed Mary of like a black man criminal, like they're trying to almost like stoop down to his level and like use words that he's like accustomed to, because because like dope is drugs, right? So once you associate like that with black men, like black men are always, you know, drug dealers or gangs, or like using words that they think that he would understand, or like in simple terms almost.
Yeah, just kind of trying to like talk to him like he's like how you like change words for like a kid sometimes. Like that's the same way that they're doing to him, but like a lot more like racist. And you know. Yeah,
I really love that point. I think I also saw a very masterful use of style at the very beginning of Flight.
Okay.
When Bigger is describing his surroundings, like when he's first waking up the day after killing Mary.
Right.
And Wright is, all he's doing is describing Bigger's like descriptions and his like environment. And I think it really highlights his style in it, because like Bigger is almost in like a state of disbelief of what he's doing. Like he's disassociating himself from his surroundings and like what he's feeling like on the inside. So like on page 97, he describes his surroundings as like almost foreign, right? So it says, they simply existed unrelated to each other. The snow and the daylight and the soft sound of breathing cast a strange spell upon him, a spell that waited for a wand of fear to touch it and endow it with reality and meaning. So it's literally like Bigger is waiting for that like click almost,
right,
of like when is his like reality gonna come crashing down on him of what he's done. And we see that, you know, like Cataclysm after, when he notices Mary's purse like in the room, and he's like, oh, I forgot like the purse is there, the knife spirals. Yeah, like the knife with the blood on it. Like he sees all these things, and it's what makes him like jump up, and like he's like, oh, like that, like I just killed someone, like I need to fix it.
Right.
And it's also like so crazy because we see Bigger go from this like not even shy, but like he just killed someone. It was in a state of almost like not necessarily protection, but like he wasn't aiming to kill Mary.
Right.
And then we see him with this well thought out plan of like, oh, throw the purse in the trash can, make the note, like she was kidnapped. Like it just goes, it delves so deep into Bigger as a character.
Yeah.
And like how Wright was able to like make him be the way that he was.
No, I totally agree, and I think Wright's style definitely helps the readers feel more with Bigger, because he kind of lives in this consistently frantic lifestyle, and he definitely uses that in the style of the writing, because like later on in that story when the reporters come and they start like questioning him, and then there's the time where they're just like sitting there, they're having a little conversation, like they're asking him about Jan or whatever, and then immediately after like he gets asked to like spruce up the furnace, and then that's when they find Mary, and that just like quick pace from like something super slow and in conversation to just like speeding up the story and being like, wow, they just found the dead body of the girl that he just killed. It just like helps us keep up with how frantic Bigger is, and kind of keep the reader interested and like on our toes the entire time. And so Wright's style really just helps us think about what Bigger is thinking about and not really disconnect with him, and have more empathy and like compassion for him and what he's going through, because we're feeling it too, you know? Right. Okay, in book 3, the final book of the novel, what do you think Wright masterfully used the best to finally close this off?
I saw a masterful use of plot once again.
I think I also saw a masterful use of plot in this last section.
Yeah, I think he used foreshadow very well in this last book. Specifically like the last page, almost like the last scene, and it's on page 427 when Max is talking to Bigger, and it's after Bigger's almost like revelation that he doesn't want to die, and he doesn't want like this to be
this isn't the life that he wants for him.
Yeah. Right. So Max is kind of like trying to talk to him, and he's like, oh well, like these are your circumstances, like these were your decisions, like this is everything that you've done.
Right.
And he's making this metaphor with like the buildings, like on like the outside of the prison, in downtown Chicago, and I think Wright did a very good job of foreshadowing this specific moment in the very first book, in Fear, when we first meet Jan. Because Jan like goes on this rant about how he's gonna own one of these buildings, like one of like the very buildings that Max is talking about.
Right.
And I think it shows that that Bigger didn't know what was like what his decisions were gonna lead him to. Like he would have never known that Max is gonna make this metaphor about the men in the building, and like the quote specifically, it's the men who own these buildings are afraid. They want to keep what they own, even if it means making others suffer. In order to keep it, they push men down the mud and tell them that they are the beast. And like that almost goes against everything that Jan like represents. Like Jan
Right.
wants to be that change in the building, and like he wants to be the person who owns it, who owns it for the better. So I think that if Bigger hadn't made those decisions that like led him there, maybe he would have been working for Jan. I think like he would have been, or like he wouldn't have been pushed in the mud, right? Like maybe he would have been able to meet those
Expectations
dreams
that he had for himself. Yeah, I definitely see that, and I definitely think this shows a lot about Bigger's character in this foreshadowing, because he never really took accountability for himself. A lot of things that he did, like killing Mary, beating up Gus, these were all kind of things that he just wanted to slide under the rug and like expect nobody to say anything about, and kind of expect to like move on with his life. But then when this moment occurs and he kind of finally realizes like, I'm stuck here and these decisions led me to be here, it's like he finally starts like rethink his life and what he's been doing. And it also kind of connects back to like you were talking about Jan and the buildings and how Jan really wanted to make a difference. It kind of shows how Bigger was like finally seeing those differences, because he's seeing these buildings for like the true thing that they are, representing like the evil and people like casting down on him, but like thinking about Jan, like there was always those people who were actually trying to help him, like even with Max as his lawyer. And it's like he spent his whole life putting others down and thinking other people were putting him down, but by the end it kind of foreshadowed that he was going to come to terms with like not everybody is against him, because the whole point of Jan was like, oh, he wanted to be friends with Bigger, like he wanted to show that like they could be friendly and associates, and Bigger finally got to that point by the end of the book when he realizes that it's too late for him to notice that. Okay, so I also saw a masterful use of foreshadowing, and the way I saw it kind of foreshadows your moment as well, because in the beginning they tell us how Bigger was sick and how he wasn't eating, and he was kind of trying to take the easy route out, which is still him trying to like not be accountable for his own actions and kind of like take the easy way of starvation out rather than being on death row, which he knows is inevitable. But instead of telling us that he's going to die, Wright takes us through the entire chapter of Bigger's lawyer trying to save him and thinking that there's going to be hope for him yet. But on page 278, in the very beginning of the chapter, the policemen bring him a tray of food, and it says there was steak and fried potatoes and coffee. Gingerly, he cut a piece of steak and put it into his mouth. It tasted so good that he tried to swallow it before he chewed it. So they describe this lavish meal that he's eating in a prison cell, which is typically known as like a death row meal, when people on death row get their final meal and it's all lavish and like incredible and tasty. This is kind of the meal that he's receiving, and he didn't even ask for it. So the way that the police just bring him this meal kind of foreshadows that like the inevitable is bound to happen whether he wants it or not, because he didn't ask for this, but they're still going to give it to him. And it kind of just shows that like we knew his path from the beginning, whether or not they wanted to try and save him or not. Like we always knew he was going to end up dying and being held responsible for his actions. And this moment kind of foreshadowed that, even though they want to like think that Bigger had hope and have Max try and save him and point out all these good points, like we always knew it was going to come down to this moment where this death row meal was going to result in Bigger being on death row.
Yeah, or even like right after this, when he asked like for the newspaper and stuff, like it's showing how like everyone around him like knows that he's gonna die. Like they have no other expectations of him except for dying. Exactly. So like this meal was like literally representing like his last like meal, and I think that especially like once he asks, or once he eats it and like he finally accepts it, he's like, I'm gonna die. And I think like throughout like the rest of the novel, like we see that where he kind of like accepts that,
right, where everybody else has like hope for him, but he's still like thinking in his head like, oh, I should be denying this hope because like I'm going to die anyway. Right, that's I feel like that's what you're kind of like saying, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That definitely makes sense. Okay guys, thanks so much for watching our panel. See you next time.
Bye.